Did you know this podcast is powered by Acast? Acast is the home of podcasting. For creators looking for freedom to grow their listeners and make money too. And creative brands looking for smart ways to advertise. Podcasters and advertisers in the know Acast. It's time you did too. Visit acast.com to find out more. Acast, for the stories.
Hello and welcome to Loose Units, Loose Ends. Every week, Dad and I get together and do a bit of a bonus podcast for you. And we don't necessarily talk about true crime, but we talk about stuff that's true crime adjacent. Dad, how are you doing this morning?
Well, Paul, I know that before we go on air, you always like to know what I'm going to talk about.
Yeah, pretty much.
But I'm going to read you an email, okay?
Oh, Christ. All
okay,
right.
Here we go. Evening all. Unfortunately, with the ongoing growth of the COVID issue in Sydney, a decision has been made to cancel the event. Now, that event, listeners and Paul, is the 40th reunion, which was going to be this Saturday, and I am devastated.
Damn. Oh, I'm sorry, Dad.
Yeah.
So that was just to bring people up to speed. That was the class, right? That was your
class 171 F
troop. Fuck.
So it's really. You know, there are a lot of people coming from interstate and obviously lots of people coming in from all parts of New South Wales.
Yeah.
And the venue is in a red zone. So they've pulled the pin on the whole thing. And the lovely, lovely organisers are a girl called Sue Whitfield, who was in my class. I mean, just think of the logistics of giving back all the refunds and cancelling the venue, and yeah, it's upsetting. I have had my heart set on this, as you and the listeners know, for probably maybe 4 or 5 months. It's taken me that long to psych myself into it because I'm not a reunion type person.
Sure, I know
but
that.
I came around to thinking, you know, this was a magnificent opportunity
to see a bunch of,
and I know that a lot of the class, because let's face it, Paul, the beginning of Loose Units, the book, is all about, well, there's a lot of it to do with F Troop.
It's set in the academy, and it's all about your time at Redfern Police Academy with these people, and it would have been amazing to get their insights and see what they've been up to, and you know, touch base. And again, yes, you are correct. You are not a reunion type of person, which means. The fact that you were willing to go was a very big deal. Now, I joked about you taking a microphone and kind of chatting with people, but the fact is you would have come back with stories. You would have come back with a shitload of stories. Damn it.
Well, look, I am still going to go at 2 p.m. on Saturday, although it's going to be a mask event, so I'm not quite sure how anyone's going to recognise anyone. But there will be a tiny group of people that will at least sort of make a show, so I've decided to go and at least make an appearance and sort of say hi to the 1 or 2 people. Can you imagine if I just went up to like a janitor, for example, and started talking as though they'd been in my class, and then at the end they said, "Look, I'm sorry, I don't know what you're talking about,"
and you accidentally spilled like crucial secret details about your time there, and then this janitor's got all this. He's got leverage,
and then it turns out that the janitor is actually an undercover operative.
Oh, double twist! I love it. Okay, so what? Oh man, that's brilliant. I mean, all they have to do is find out that John Verhoeven's going, send an operative down, and just kind of appeal to your ego, and we're screwed.
Well, that's pretty easy to do, isn't it?
Yep, that's the whole premise upon which this podcast rests. I'm really sorry, Dad. I know you were very excited about the reunion. If anyone from Dad's class in F Troop wants to get in touch and kind of, you know, just, I'm sure we can organise something else. I'm sure we can kind of get things back to where they were. So.
But Paul, on an incredibly exciting note,
yes,
I think we're doing pretty well in the ticket stakes.
Oh, we've sold more than half of sales, and oh Christ, I'm so excited about this live show. Dad, we haven't been on stage in so long, and I mean, our first show was in Melbourne. I've got the audio file of our first Melbourne show sitting on my hard drive. In fact, I realised that if you go back through the podcast feed, I'm talking years. If you go back years through the podcast feed, you can hear our live Melbourne show. You can hear our first show. And it was at Toff in Town, which is this sort of, like, it's in this beautiful old building. It's in a bar, basically. So everyone was a little bit drunk at the time. And it was a very enjoyable gig. And it was your first live show with me.
Horrific.
And
scary.
Oh, you said horrific. I thought you said terrific, but yes.
No, I was shit scared.
Yep. Yeah, but this show is it's part of the Melbourne Podcast Festival, which means basically it's a jam factory, which is sort of this huge. Well, it's an old turn of the century jam factory that's been turned into a cinema complex, and so we're actually going to be doing it in a cinema. I love movie theaters. In fact, this specific movie theater I've seen a lot of stuff in, so it's going to be weird performing up the front of the. Maybe we can get the screen. Maybe we can commandeer the screen and have stuff playing behind us. You know, like a slideshow of our greatest hits, or I don't know, some case files, or
maybe we could get some actors to act out the story I wrote for My Dad Wrote a Porno.
No, you don't. We don't want that because it was horrible. But although, having said that, that was one of my favorite episodes of the show. But look, we're going to be doing an hour-long live Loose Units show, and it will be recorded. But again, we'll be doing a meet and greet, signing stuff, and we are so excited. And folks, tickets are selling really fast. We're well over the halfway mark. Got some tickets left, but we want to kind of pack this out, okay? We want a sold-out crowd. We want a full house. So we need you, Melbourne listeners, to really come through and rock up on the night. And you can get tickets over at the Facebook page, over at the discussion group, or you can head to melbournepodcastfestival.com. It's July the 31st at Jam Factory. Oh, Dad, it's also at 9 p.m., which is a
great time.
It's a great time. I mean,
I'm normally in bed at 9.
Yeah, me too.
But I won't be this time.
Well, I hope not. And we can just
I booked it.
Wheel a bed out on stage. We could just have a bed on stage. You know, you could just have a nap halfway through the show.
Well, you are an ideas person, but not that great. But
if you haven't already got tickets to our live Melbourne show, do it. If you live in another state and want to come down and visit, do it. It's going to be awesome. And again, this is our first live show in a year and a half. We're in the kind of progress of checking off all these places. In answer to your questions, yes, we will get to your city at some point soon, but we have to start with Melbourne because the Melbourne Podcast Festival, some huge shows are going to be there, and we've been invited, and it's a huge honour, so we're really excited.
It's an honour for these other shows to be with us.
There's that
at that venue.
There's that Loose Units brand I was looking for from Dad. Listen, let's plow on with the show. Oh, sorry, one more thing. Dad, Tegan and I launched a brand new podcast this week called Dish, and our first guest is friend of the show, Georgia Love, but it is the premise is, if you were trapped on an island, what one dish would you bring with you? What would your desert island dish be? So every week on Dish, a new exciting guest comes along and talks about food and talks about life. It's kind of like a comedy talk show, but the idea is that Tegan and I host the show on this island, and the guest is trapped there with us. So I can give you a sneak peek of some of the upcoming guests. We've got Georgia Love, we've got Lola Berry is coming on the show, comedian Sammy Shah, we've got Sian Redgrave, who won the Great Australian Bake Off, we've got Maxie Shield from Drag Race Down Under, we've got a whole bunch of big secret guests coming up that I can't mention. And at some point, Dad, I mean, I would like to formally invite you on the show, if you'd like to come
Paul,
on.
you are so kind and sweet, but I've already figured out what dish I'd bring.
Well, you can't tell us now. You have to save it for the show.
Okay.
But the fact that you have an opinion about this is very exciting. So it's
Paul, there are very few things in life I don't have an opinion on.
That's very true.
Paul,
Yeah.
where is the podcast?
What do you mean, where is it?
I mean, where's it being recorded?
Oh, well, we do it on the island, obviously.
I get it. I see.
Yeah,
You're
so
actually on an island.
Yeah, the location of the island is a mystery.
It's a secret island.
Secret island, yeah. And the premise is, not the premise, and what happens is, every time a guest comes to the island and talks to us, they are then trapped on the island. So the longer the show goes for, the population of the island kind of builds up and up and up. And before we know it, we're going to have an island covered in famous people, all trapped there, all eating constantly and talking about food. And it's going to get a bit weird. The smoke monster from Lost is there. Anyway, it's on iTunes. It's on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts. Literally anywhere you get your podcasts, it's there. So if you listen to Loose Units and you like Loose Units, make sure you head along to wherever you get your shows, subscribe, share the show around. We're really excited. Acast, who distributes Loose Units, they're the people behind this one as well. So it's an Acast production, and we're very, very excited.
Now, Paul, it's an island, so how do you get all these famous people come on to the island and you cook up a storm?
Yep.
So you actually cook their dishes, do you?
No, they cook. Well, so okay. We're kind of in two minds about this. Imagine the island from Jurassic Park without dinosaurs. So you rock up and it's covered in jungle and forest and whatever. We give people building materials to kind of build their houses or whatever. They can kind of... But the idea is they can make their dishes, right? Kind of infinitely. But let's say Jamie Oliver comes and his dish is carbonara, right? And someone else has carbonara. Then we've got this weird situation where, as a person who lives on the island, you have to decide whose carbonara you want. Maybe that will start a kind of guerrilla war where people kind of split into tribes, Lord of the Flies style. It's a weird show, but we have some truly staggeringly big guests coming up on the show that we can't talk about yet. The biggest of whom is Dad. So Dad, you are
You're very sweet.
You are
Thank
formally
you.
invited to come on the show. So,
All right, in season 5.
no, well, I'm talking pretty soon.
Oh wow!
Maybe-
I'll tell you what, my juices are flowing.
Well, I mean,
To use a cooking parlance, is it?
just make sure they're running clear, otherwise it's undercooked. Also, one more thing, and this is kind of crime related in that it's a legal matter. Britney Spears is currently in court trying to end her conservatorship, which basically means her dad, Jamie Spears, has been controlling her life for decades. So she's just addressed the conservatorship for the first time in court, and she's revealed something which is so crazy. So her dad has had control over her life since 2008, when an LA court ordered a conservatorship after her kind of public breakdown, which is because of the pressures of fame and whatnot, right? And it turns out that as part of the conservatorship, he's made sure that she has an IUD in her that means she can't have children. And she's basically gotten up and said she's basically having a breakdown because of the level of control he has. She controls her allowance. But the fact that he controls her kind of... I mean, I don't want to jump on the Free Britney movement, but I think I kind of do. I mean, this is a quote. "I'm traumatized. I'm not happy. I can't sleep. I'm so angry. It's insane." The fact that her dad controls her reproductive rights by having an IUD in her... I mean, that is...
Paul?
Yeah.
I've heard of Britney Spears.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Uh-huh.
I have not heard anything about this story at all. So to deliver that content to me whilst I'm sitting here in real time is vile and offensive. And if I met that guy in the street, I'd give him a gobful, as we do in this country. That is one of the most disturbing, disgusting, offensive, foul, fucked things I've ever heard in my life. It is beyond... I am almost speechless. It is offensive. Can you imagine if I said to your sister that I would do something like that?
If Anne had Anne had a kind of small if Anne had a public breakdown back in 2008, and then everyone went, "Where's Anne been?" and you went, "Oh, I've basically got her under house arrest. I control her finances," and okay, so NPR said, in a rare and explosive testimony, Britney Spears asked a court to end her conservatorship, saying her life is being exploited, she's depressed and cries every day. She says she wants another baby, but is forced by the agreement to keep an IUD in place. Now, an IUD, is that that's like an implant that's birth control, right?
It's sort of a piece of wire, basically, that just basically, because it's a foreign object in that region, it just messes everything up. And look... Anyway, God, you could do a whole series just on IUDs.
If you go to
problems,
if you go to Instagram and look at Britney Spears' feed, it's basically like watching someone. First of all, she looks trapped. There's been a kind of movement going for years called Free Britney online. And I'm sure some of you don't like Britney Spears, don't care about Britney Spears. But the fact is, again, this is a young woman who has basically... I mean, this is fucked. It's so fucked. So she's...
Well, it has... Yeah. To me, it has... It's not about Britney Spears.
No, it's just about...
At all.
Yeah.
It's about a man usurping his sort of supposed sort of paternal rights. It's so... I find it disturbing. And it's one of those things that if I was to sit in a dark room for 24 hours and try and come up with some really scary... father-daughter stuff or male-female stuff, I don't think I'd even get into those realms. And when you mentioned it to me, I'm a little bit surprised. I guess perhaps I have a bit of I guess the filter comes down for me when it comes to certain types of news.
Yes, I agree.
I tend not to go to delve into that world of sort of star personality stuff. I was flicking through on the BBC News feed this morning because I follow Sotheby's and Christie's and Bonhams, and they've got some some sand shoes that Roger Federer owned in some match, and to me, I find that quite surreal and bizarre. Even though I do deal in the world of collectibles, but I think we need to all just pull back a little bit and sort of, I'm stating the bleeding obvious, but someone yesterday said to me, John, look, what's your mantra for living? And I have a few, but one of my key mantras is never take anything for granted, which sounds really easy, but, if you really think about it, and just appreciate every single day and see beauty in small things. And I think that's, again, one of the nice things about photography. It helps you focus on the immediate and the now. And if ever you're out with your iPhone or your other phone or whatever, and we all have smartphones, and you're walking and you see something beautiful and you think, wow, that would be a great photo, stop and take the photo. Because if it's one of those moments in time, you'll probably never get that chance again. Am I digressing slightly?
I mean, we went from Free Britney to the plastic bag from American Beauty, which is totally fine.
Want the epic stuff? The extraordinary stuff? The edge-of-your-seat stuff? The good stuff. With AMC Plus, you can watch the best of AMC, BBC America, IFC, Sundance Now, Shudder, and more. Hungry for horror? Feast on Shudder's chilling originals like Creepshow Season 2 and killer premieres like Train to Busan Presents Peninsula. Got a need for speed? The boys are back with an epic tour of the UK as Top Gear races through a new season. All available on AMC Plus, ad-free and on demand. Start your free trial today at amcplus.com. AMC Plus, only the good stuff.
Now, Paul, on your island, how are they going to do they fly things in, or
no. Well, look, okay, it's kind of a magic island, right? So you get there and you're trapped there, and it is just imagine the island from Lost, right? You're on the island, but the one kind of plus to being there, apart from our sparkling wit and company, is the fact that you get to bring one dish with you that you can make over and over, right? You have the ingredients appear as if by magic, and you can cook that one dish. Other people can cook their dishes, and you can trade dishes, which means that sometimes, because we've already recorded 4 or 5 episodes, guests will rock up and say, what's everyone else done? And we tell them. And sometimes they change their choices based on what other people have made. And Georgia Love, Georgia, who was the Bachelorette. She's a roving news reporter. Georgia Love's great. She's wonderful, and she's a big fan of Loose Units and Electric Blue, and she's a big fan of us. Her dish choice, her desert island dish, is so controversial. I don't even know how to put it into words. So if you want to find out what her dish is, and hear the first episode, make sure you head along to wherever you get your podcast and subscribe. But yeah, her dish is weird. And I'm excited to hear what yours is. But Dad, I don't want to we've done Free Britney, we've done your reunion being cancelled, we've talked about Dish, we've talked about the live show, we're kind of fanging it through all these topics. But I want to make sure that we get to some listener mail. So can we...
Oh, okay.
Yeah? I mean, I'm having a great time, but we've got some great messages.
No, I get it. But Paul, a lovely guy that goes under the name of Dower, which is kind of interesting. He once wrote, which we responded to, John, as a father, what is your proudest moment of Paul and why? And then he also said to you, what memories from your childhood do you cherish the most and why? Now, we answered that in a previous podcast.
Yes, we did.
But he wrote back to me yesterday.
Oh, okay.
With 2 more questions.
Oh, okay.
Well, he said, one more question for you. Next episode, more of a 2-part question. What is the most you enjoyed about working in the police force, and what area of the police force did you enjoy the most? So
that's kind of the same question, but yes.
No, it is, yeah.
You want to give it a crack?
Well, I love giving things a crack. Did I tell you I was at an auction house 2 weeks ago and they had a whip there, a stock whip?
Did you buy it?
No, did I tell you the story?
No.
Well, I actually learned how to crack a whip when I was out on a property in Tamworth when I was in the police force. We used to go out onto this property sort of up in the mountains near Tamworth, and we rode horseback and cracked whips. Can you believe it?
So you know how to crack a whip?
My My fur coat, I do.
So that's what?
And it's an art.
I'm sorry. Can we just wind back to that expression?
My fur coat, I do. In other words, yes, I do.
What?
Or my oath. You haven't heard that term?
I don't think anyone's heard that term.
Oh, excellent.
I like it very much. I don't...
Well, it's a way of saying yes, my fur coat. I have no idea where it came from. I do not own a fur coat. Let's just put that on the table.
Okay.
But can you imagine riding a horse? I love riding horses. I'm left-handed, so my right hand is holding the rein.
Yep.
And I've got my feet in the stirrups. Mm-hmm. And not stirrups, those types where you give birth. That'd be weird. Well, then you wouldn't even be on a horse, would you? In fact, I don't think they use... Although they do use stirrups occasionally for certain gynecological procedures. Oh, fuck.
What the fuck?
But Paul, so cracking a whip is bloody difficult to do. Mm-hmm. So I went to this auction house a few weeks ago and they had a 19th century rare stock whip. And it was sort of all bound up so people wouldn't try and use it. And I said to the staff, because I've got a very good reputation there, I said, do you mind if I have a crack at the whip? Mm-hmm. They said yes. So they gathered round. They gave me about maybe 5 square metres of free space. They sort of created a bit of a circle around me.
Yep.
And I'll tell you what, it was like riding a bike. You never forget. And I got this whip out. I sort of uncoiled it.
Yep.
This is the 19th century leather full-on stock whip. And in the middle of this auction house, in this beautiful void, I let it crack. And it made the most... It was like a combination of lightning and thunder. It was so exciting. And I got a bit carried away because there are certain things you can do with a whip. And then when I went to crack it the second time, get ready for this.
Yep.
This 19th century magnificent rare leather stock whip, I broke it. It snapped in two. And it was one of those moments where everyone felt sad and sorry for me, and it was very embarrassing.
You had to pay for it, I assume.
No, because they were very kind and sweet, and oh God, I shouldn't be saying this on the podcast. But anyway, they, let's just say that we covered things up a little bit and put it back on display.
Wait, hang on.
Oh dear.
Hang on. Is this being auctioned now?
Oh, it's sold.
It's sold. It broke.
Yeah, I broke it. I broke it prior to the viewing, which is good.
Are you legally culpable, or are they...
Well, technically, yes, but what they then did, very, very kindly, is that they then described it as a 19th century stock whip, AF, and that means as found, which means...
Right, so, oh man, I wonder what kind of brave burly stockman used this in some heroic...
it was a magnificent... And I've actually been seriously...
Yeah.
I'm contemplating buying a stock whip, a brand new one, and going down to the local park and just cracking it from time to time.
Hang on, that's a weapon, surely.
No, it's not a weapon. It's a device used for... Well, I could use it... Because we have fireworks here that go off every night at 10 p.m.
What?
And, every single night of the year. These fireworks go off. Didn't you know that?
No.
Have a guess, Paul,
Mm-hmm.
why fireworks go off every single night of the year around where we live. And I can say to everyone, it's kind of inner Sydney.
Because the Governor-General lives near there, and he is an absolute dynamo in the sack, and he likes to make love at the exact same time every night and punctuate the moment of ecstasy with fireworks.
You have got an incredibly vivid imagination. You got that from me. Not from your mum. Although she'd be upset if she heard that.
I don't know. I think no, you know what? It's probably an even mix. Okay, what are the fireworks for?
Well, would you like to... It's something to do with the Sydney Botanic Gardens.
Is it a rare orchid that explodes? No, I mean, hang on. Why would they need to set off... When you say fireworks, do you mean like a single bunger, or do you mean a full-blown...
No. This is a major, almost like a mini fireworks display.
Hang on, every night?
Every single night in Sydney.
Tell me.
Are you impressed?
Well, I'm dubious.
And intrigued? Are you intrigued? We have a major problem in the Botanic Gardens with flying foxes.
Right.
And they do that to try and, agitate them.
Uh-huh.
And stop hanging upside down and peeing on themselves.
Right.
Which they do.
And some people do that too.
They do. Probably. I can't speak from experience, but yes, I imagine they do.
So wait,
isn't that interesting?
Every night they said...
Yeah. Every night we hear them. And actually, weirdly enough, we've been hearing it for years, and it only... I genuinely used to think that it was just crazy rich people having parties.
Apparently it's not. I mean, I'm Googling, and the last thing I can find is that they just play loud noises.
No, this is fireworks. Well, it's like thundery explosions, put it that way.
Okay.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, but a firework is two components. It's the noise and it's the actual, the light and the...
No, not with a bunger. Because we used to use bungers back in the day when you could literally blow your hands off.
You bung things. I once put a small bunger in my mouth, pulled the string out, and almost blew my lips off. I know.
Did you?
I was a teenager.
That's weird.
I was at Anthony Stenmark's house, and I almost blew my lips off. And I tried to play it off like it wasn't a problem. It was a problem, and I couldn't talk properly for a couple of hours.
I told you that time I burnt myself on a big firework, didn't I?
No.
Really badly. And my parents insisted on going to church in Newcastle that night.
Yep.
And I literally had third-degree burns on my thumb. And guess what I had to do?
What?
I stood at the back of the church with my thumb in the holy water.
Oh, I mean, if you're a religious person, that's probably better than a doctor, right?
No, but the water did help.
Huh.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
Just a little tidbit I thought I'd throw in.
Of what?
Anyway.
Okay, hang on. Look, I'm just going to read one quick message, okay? Because
right, cool.
By the way, Dad, I've had such a good time today. This has been great. I'm having a great time.
Good.
Sometimes you wake up and you're not sure how your day's going to go. You have your coffee, and you just, emotionally, tonally, you're not feeling. You're in that kind of neutral space where it could easily tip either way. Thank you for pushing me into the good box. I really appreciate it.
Well, I'm so happy I could have a gay time.
Fuck does that mean?
Ice cream, one of my favourite ice creams. Golden gay time.
Yeah, they're pretty good. This is a message from Louise Thorley. Hi, Paul and John. I've been tossing up whether to write you guys about this, but after reminiscing with a friend, I thought I would. A couple of weeks back on the Adrenaline episode, John talked about how he and his mates used to lift each other up in the air or into the roof with ease. My friends and I, back in the very early 90s, used to do that at school too. We did it in the hall at lunchtimes. I hadn't thought of that for many years. We used to chant, stiff as a board, light as a feather, over and over, and then boom, up they went with very little effort. It was quite amazing, really. I'm curious as to whether John used the same chant before the lift. I really love your podcast and John's stories. Your banter is hilarious. I can't wait till you guys do some live shows again. Love your work, Lou. First of all, Lou, hope you're coming to the Melbourne show. Secondly, Dad, you didn't mention a chant when you told the story.
It definitely was a chant, and thank you very much, Lou, for bringing that back into the circle, into the circle of circles, the magic circle.
Okay.
Yes, we'd all do that. We'd say something, and that rings a bell, but you're not going to... It's weird because I don't know whether it's auto-suggestion, but I'm thinking we also used to do it back at Beacon Hill High School.
Really?
It's very possible. I think we went through phases. Sort of things back in high school, you'd do certain things.
Oh, like Pogs or Tazo or...
Or the Little Red School Book.
What? Were you a communist?
No, but there was, back in the 70s, there was the Little Red School Book. And it was just had all sorts of things in it, like the F word and the C word, and had little diagrams and spoke about intercourse and just taboo topics. And I remember seeing it. There was a throng, not a thong,
or a
throng of people in the quadrangle at Beacon Hill High School, probably 1974. And you just sensed that someone, and the word had got out. Like that famous Australian poem, Clancy of the Overflow. There's a sentence in it where something got out. And, oh God, Paul. So, and you'd sort of make your way to the inner sanctum, and someone had the book. And it was just this, I mean, for people that listen to this podcast that may recall the Little Red School Book, I'm sure, I've never Googled it.
Here we go. I'll read this. In 1969, shortly after the Summer of Love swept America, Danish school teachers Søren Hansen and Jesper Jensen penned a slim and provocative book for teens as a protest against the Victorian/authoritarian school system with its robotic discipline, encouraging young people to think for themselves, to question social rights, to demand more of their education, and to explore their sexuality without shame. While aimed at kids, this refreshingly lucid principle of identity and blah, 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 blah. Right, so it looks like it was kind of a educational / protest book. I'm looking through it now. Oh, it was illustrated. Okay, there's like a monster in there. Is this the same thing that you are thinking of?
Not sure. Is it called The Little Red School Book?
Yes, it's called The Little Red School Book.
Does it have any pictures of willies and things?
Well, I'm going to look through it now. Here we go. Oh, I've got a scan of it right here. Okay, I'm looking through now. Staff meetings, influence. It's kind of got like a... Yeah, it's homosexuality, porn, drugs, abortion,
cool.
pot,
That's it.
acid,
Everything.
morphine, cocaine, heroin, speed, change, power, careers, discrimination against girls, solidarity, conflict.
Isn't that interesting? And it was banned.
Yeah.
It was an illegal book in New South Wales back in the 70s. And someone got a copy of it at my high school.
Yeah.
And it was just this thing that it was sort of, it was just surreal and exciting.
Unless the section unless the section talking about boners had the phrase "stiff as a board" in there, how is this linked with our lovely listener's question about the chant?
It's not at all, but it did bring back memory of my time in high school.
Honestly, I find it fascinating, and I love the idea that two naughty Swedes published a book to help people get some real information in their lives. So,
well, it reminds me of, speaking of Swedish, the Colour Climax Corporation.
No.
They sort of led the world of pornography back in the 60s, early 70s.
Right.
And one of the guys in my class in F Troop, you remember the story? I was in the city and I met this tall guy with long hair. Oh,
and you said that one of your kind of ex-cop friends ran
in my class, ran the biggest pornography bookshop in Sydney, if not Australia. I mean, it was an icon,
right?
And he just maintained his niceness and decency, and he was just like a gentle giant and a fucking good bloke. And funnily enough, half Dutch like me.
Right.
I'm not sure whether it's the top or the bottom half, but they always say, isn't it funny? You say half Dutch, or half Scandinavian, or half.
You're half Dutch, right?
Yes, but what half of is it? The top or bottom half?
I think it's like a mix. It's like when you put salt into a soup and you stir it. You can't then take the salt out. It is in every part of it, right?
Mm. And Paul, if I may, your cooking thing is exciting, but I cooked one of my signature dishes last night, and it was so good,
right,
that Christine has asked me to replicate it.
Okay. What was it?
Now, I don't want listeners to sort of go, so what, John? But when I say signature dish, I added a bit of something special into it. Rissoles. But exceptional. Paul, don't say it in such a monotone... I mean, they were magnificent rissoles.
That's the most Australian thing you could have cooked.
Paul, mate, I have a few signature dishes.
Look, mate, it'll put hair on your chest. Paul,
I have no hair on my chest, Paul.
By the way, I had a listener reach out, and I'm gonna close on this message from a listener. Okay, now the listener has asked not to be named in a kind of fun way, but I think I'm gonna name the listener just because it's funny to name them. Okay, I'll just give his first name. His name is Peter, and Dad, this is the final beat of this episode. Hi, Paul. Love you, Dad, and don't mean to offend him, but gotta say, without ever having met him, your impersonation of him is spot on and cracks me up every time. Thanks, Peter. I think it's a pretty good impression too.
I think you wrote that yourself.
No, I didn't.
I don't think Peter exists. Okay, except in your little mind.
I'll send you a screen cap right now. Here we go.
And so I don't care. I don't believe it because I don't sound like that.
Well, you go from monotone to over enunciating words when you feel like you're kind of on the back foot or you're trying to impress people. One of my favorite things about you is that it's very hard to get you to laugh. But when you do, it's like fireworks going off. Not like Botanic Garden grade fireworks. Check your phone, by the way.
Oh yeah, that looks pretty fair dinkum. Oh yeah, but look at the caricature of himself.
He's an illustrator.
Fair enough.
Anyway,
I think I've spoken to him. He's a lovely guy.
Lovely guy, and
thanks, Pete.
No problem. Throwing you under the bus. Love it. Thanks, Pete. And thanks, everyone, for listening to this truly joyous episode of Loose Units, Loose Ends. Dad and I had an absolute blast, and we can't wait to see you next week for more Loose Units. And also, if you live in Melbourne, we can't wait to see you when we do our show at the Melbourne Podcast Festival. So get off your butts, because tickets are selling out really freaking fast. MelbournePodcastFestival.com is where you go to grab your tickets, or you can head across to our Facebook page, the Loose Units discussion page. Have a wonderful weekend, and we'll see you next week for more Loose Units. Bye.
Oh, and Paul.
Yep.
One more thing.
Sure.
Everyone is commenting on my hair, and some people have described me as a beatnik.
Yeah, you got to put some product in there, Dad.
Paul,
Yep.
FYI, I'm getting a haircut today, but not because of the listeners and readers. And some people are also commenting on the way I raised my eyebrows.
Dad, run a bloody comb through your hair. You look like a hippie.
Fair enough. All right. Lovely chatting.
Bye, everyone.
And bye, everyone.
Bye.
Cheerio.
Acast powers the world's best podcasts. Here's a new season we recommend.
An international mystery with a growing demand for answers.
Jamal Khashoggi was his country's most prominent journalist, writing for one of America's premier newspapers. What happened to him inside the Saudi consulate in Istanbul was shocking. But there is much more to the story that you've never heard, and one big question still outstanding.
There has not been any justice. I'm wondering why they killed Jamal.
This was the result of a real-life conspiracy. And at the center of it all, a world-famous journalist whose career was marked by layers of contradictions and secrets.
If somebody sits across from you and tells you that Jamal told them everything, they're 100% lying to you.
A new season of Yahoo News' Conspiracyland, the secret lives and brutal death of Jamal Khashoggi. It turns out, some conspiracies are real.